There's a 1 mile wide and 720 foot deep crater in the ground which exists a mere 130 miles away from Phoenix, Arizona. And no, I am not referring to the still equally fascinating meteor crater impact crater east of Flagstaff, which you should visit by the way, because that feature only measures 3,900 feet wide and is only 3/4 as deep as the prior mentioned feature. While meteor crater formed in an iron-nickel asteroid impact 50,000 years ago, the aforementioned larger crater formed in a completely different manner, representing the most distinctive feature in a massive, largely unknown volcanic complex which is so large and distinguishable that it can be easily made out from orbit. Surrounded by the sands of the Sonoran Desert, this vast field of young lava flows and volcanic vents starkly contrasts with its surrounding landscape across an area of 700 square miles or 1,813 square kilometers, meaning it is larger than the entire island nation of St. Lucia. But while 180,000 people live on St. Lucia, less than 50 people live in close proximity to the Pinacate volcano, despite the fact that this feature, and I truly mean this, is such a natural geologic gem which is known as the Pinacate volcanic field. I mean this both figuratively and literally, as you can find large transparent crystals of the semi-precious gemstone known as labradorite, which appear as a yellow citrine-like color there, although I want to remind everyone that collecting is not allowed here. But also, across this vast region, the Pinacate volcano has everything you could ask for across more than 500 distinct vents. So, here are a few of my favorites. One is the aforementioned 1 mile wide and 720 foot deep massive volcanic explosion crater in the ground known as El Elegante. Another is the central shield volcano often host to a patch of snow during the winter known as Santa Clara. Third is an area devastated by a powerful volcanic eruption which buried almost everything in a 1 mile radius in a layer of up to 100 feet thick of pyroclastic flow deposits and ash originating from a vent known as Cerro Colorado. But what is most interesting are the series of very dark black and pristine-looking lava flows that dot the landscape, which almost look as if they may have erupted within the last 500 years. Adding to this, there are both unconfirmed reports of volcanic eruptions here multiple times during the 20th century, and more credible reports from Tohono O'odham legends which also tell of recent volcanic eruptions here. Thus, while you might be surprised to learn that none of these lava flows, despite their appearance, have been dated to less than 11,650 years old, this complex is nevertheless still classified as an active volcano. With this in mind, why does such a massive cluster of volcanoes exist here in the first place? The answer relates to the fact that 13 million years ago, Baja California was originally connected to the rest of Mexico. However, in the time since, it has drifted apart due to the appearance of a divergent plate boundary alongside a series of large transform faults. This motion has not only created a series of parallel faults in the crust, but also accentuated weak spots that existed due to pre-existing basin and range province spreading. As a result, these faults were utilized as paths of least resistance for magma to eventually intrude through, forming the Pinacate volcano as well as the volcanoes on Baja California. The Pinacate volcanic field began forming 4 million years ago when a series of basaltic cinder cones formed through mildly explosive eruptions. Eruptions initially occurred across a wide area with no two eruptions occurring in the same place and magma not staying in the shallow crust during the long term, hence the scattered nature of eruptions which likely occurred at a rate of about once every 7,500 years. The eruptions which formed the Arizona portion of the field occurred in a similar manner between 2.5 and 1.6 million years ago via the creation of more than a dozen vents. However, the volcano would go into temporary overdrive beginning 1.2 million years ago when a large batch of magma not only powered a cinder cone-forming eruption on the surface, but remained in the shallow crust for the long term, slowly becoming more and more silica and alkali-rich over time. A high rate of eruptions subsequently continued occurring at the same magma chamber and vent, building an ever-expanding shield volcano known as Santa Clara. Santa Clara would erupt at least 150 times during a 100,000-year-long time span, leaving behind the tallest point in the Pinacate volcanic field with its last few eruptions producing viscous trachyte lavas. A lower rate of eruptions followed at monogenetic vents, which now either form cinder cones, maars, or tuff rings. Maars formed when rising magma contacted existing groundwater, causing it to flash to steam and explode, blasting a large crater in the ground. These eruptions generated pyroclastic flows that incinerated any nearby vegetation through large ballistic projectiles of rock and deposited significant amounts of ash, such as at Crater El Elegante 32,000 years ago. Tuff rings or tuff cones, on the other hand, are essentially maars that formed in a more water-rich environment such as a shallow lake or underneath a recently dried lake bed. However, tuff rings formed via a singular large explosion, while tuff cones formed through repeated large explosions, with the latter being the case 15,000 years ago and what formed the Cerro Colorado vent. As for the seemingly young-looking lava flows, these are largely much older than they appear due to the slow rate of erosion seen in such a dry environment. Thus, here is a brief overview of all 5 known volcanic eruptions that occurred in the Pinacate volcanic field during the last 50,000 years, although I do want to note that several other young lava flows which could have formed during the same time frame are currently undated. With all this information in mind, how hazardous would I consider the Pinacate volcanic field to be? Utilizing the U.S. Geological Survey method of rating volcanoes, Pinacate will be classified on the low end of a moderate threat volcano. As a final note, I would like to thank my new patron, Moderately Dinosaur, for supporting this channel.